It's a busy window, both moves in and out, as John was just saying. Were you at all surprised by, maybe with retrospect, hindsight, how busy it actually got and how much you were able to get done?
Yes, I would say. I think going into the window, given the cap flexibility that we did not have, I probably expected more, like maybe 2 players in. So to be able to get 5 in was, I think, a surprise for all of us, pleasant surprise. Obviously some sacrifices when you do that in a salary cap league, but ultimately the play on the field will determine what success is or isn't. Sheer numbers of players aren't a predictor of success. So we'll see how these players continue to integrate into the team.
Was there I guess beyond you said results for winning, was there a guiding vision for what you were looking for, or how you were looking to improve this team to win in this window?
I think we were looking to get better with the ball a little bit. In the case of IU specifically, get somebody big and mobile. I think you saw that the other night. The physicality, the size, someone that could supplement what Evander and Kevin do up there. In the case of Sammy Geedy, finding a real ball progressor, someone that can retain the ball in midfield and connect and move us up the field. So every one of those additions there was sort of a key element that they add to the game that we thought could help enhance the group we already had.
It was already kind of a talking point after the winter, just the amount of money spent on the roster, and then you make all these moves in the summer. I know the club has talked about the goal being to win trophies, but it seems like it's kind of become a real expectation for the fans. Is that realistic? I mean, should that be an expectation at this point?
It should always be. I mean, we do have a commitment from ownership that's among some of the best sort of expenditures in MLS. So that puts pressure on ourselves that we welcome. That's why we do this. We want to win. We think we have a team that's built to win. Ultimately, there's few trophies to win, but we think we're still in the hunt for a couple of them, and sure, that's always going to be the expectation when we have the infrastructure we do, and we have the people and players that we do.
It's been a little bit of a rough patch now with the 3 straight home losses, and kind of the second straight season where we've seen a little bit of a drop toward the end of the season. I guess if it doesn't get turned around, like what are the ramifications? Like, do you feel like, is there pressure on Pat, for example, to get it done this year?
There's pressure on all of us. I mean, what does get it done mean? I don't really know what that means. Obviously, we're in it to win something, right? Pat is a coach of the year for a reason, and he's an excellent coach, and he's the right guy to lead us now and in the future. But sure, we put the pressure on ourselves. It's not good enough right now. I mean, Pat said as much in his press conference the other night. We've set expectations high enough that this is not the level we should be performing at, and we know that. We have a couple weeks now to address it and continue to sort of acclimate these players into the team. Look, unfortunately, the last couple seasons, for whatever reason, we've been missing key pieces as well. So you can't not mention that we didn't play with Miles and Obi the other night. Those aren't excuses. That's just reality. Those are foundational pieces in what we do. Last year it was Matt. The year before it was Matt and Obi. So it's hard to overcome those things. And again, in a cap league where those guys are make up an amount of the salary cap, or you're depending on them for X reason. So, but that being said, no, look, we put the pressure on ourselves, and we welcome that.
Do you have to kind of rethink how you handle the summer window in the future? Just Pat has talked about, I know you've talked about it too, with the trying to get aligned with the European windows, which they did extend the deadline, but then it's so late. Pat has mentioned there's really only 6 games for these guys.
Yeah, it's an imperfect system. That's why we're talking about adjusting it and aligning with the European calendar so that we can, imagine having all these additions, and now we're heading into preseason, or we're heading into the first game of the year. we make it a lot easier to kind of, bring the guys together and hopefully form success early that would determine success during the year. That's just not the situation we're in now, and it's like I always say in MLS, you can, the guys that come and go quickly are the people that sit and whine about, why, certain things are in place they're inefficient, and the teams that have success try to deal within those constraints, and we try to live in the latter part of the world.
You've injected the team with a handful of young players and saw the team move on from some of the more senior players, not that they were old, but just some of the older players in the team. Are these moves kind of a change in philosophy going forward?
No, not really. I mean, I think you're always looking to you have your core, and then pieces of your core move on, and then you augment your core, and you're hoping when you do that you are getting younger, so that those players can be building blocks for years to come. I mean, Evander and Kevin are the best examples of that, right? They're new pieces of the core, but they're also years younger than the players before them, and I think this window is another example of that. Try to get players that can come in and help win now, but that you can build around in the future, and that's what we kind of looked at with this window.
Yeah. Do you believe this resets kind of that proverbial championship window?
I hope the championship window's here the whole time that we're here. I mean, that's my personal expectation. We can reassess when we're standing here next year and seeing where we are, and maybe I'm not saying we're in a win now mode, but those are the expectations that we have. It's to be great every year, and those are the expectations that our ownership has, and we'll continue to have the commitment to support us to do so. So, those players haven't, a couple of them played 2 games, some of them aren't here still, so I'll be able to answer that question better the next time you guys grill me.
Final day of the window, you bring in Brener, or it's announced the next day, I guess technically. Could you take us through your perspective how that move came to be and what you hope that ultimately does for this team?
Yeah, I mean, it really wasn't a reality until about 48 hours before the window was closing. The ability to get him on loan, the ability to be able to negotiate the deal, to be able to fit in the salary cap, all that came together pretty quickly. We kind of saw it as a really, really nice to have, a great piece like that, but not necessarily a must-have at the time. But I think certainly an exclamation point on the window, and a player with incredible ability that hopefully gives us a chance to realize some of our expectations.
How do you view him, Vander, Kevin, go even further back?
All really talented.
Everyone together. How do you think they mesh together in a way that maybe makes sense for you guys?
That's something that we're still going to evolve here and see over the next few weeks. They all know how to play the game at a high level. I think the chance that Brener would want back and misses in the game is a pretty nice combination between Evander and Kevin and Brener. I think we saw some really elite patterns of play in training last week that unfortunately we didn't see as much in the game. Players of that quality tend to understand players that have similar qualities, and so I think that their soccer IQ should be what rises above and allows them to connect quickly. But that's also on us to design a game plan that enhances the qualities that those players have. So some of it's on them and some of it's on us.
With the way that Brener had left, I guess at what point did you start to believe that you could accept him back and that things would be different this time around?
Him and I exchanged messages last summer. He messaged me out of nowhere, and I won't get into the details, but I was rooting for him even when he moved on out of here. Brener's a really, really good kid, and I think he would tell you he's matured a lot in the last couple of years, as we all do. You wouldn't want to see me at 22, that's for sure. So, no, it was easy. We were sort of past bad blood or whatever you want to call it. I mean, sports are dynamic. There's a lot of egos, personalities. There's a lot of money on the line for these kids. I get where they're, sometimes they get frustrated. They don't get the move. Maybe they're not getting all the right information. In the end, I want to win. And so able to put ego aside, and certainly that was very easy. And like I said, that was kind of mended last summer, and we were just excited about the possibility of him and what he can do on the field.
My understanding is that Jeff was pretty involved in that one. Just he had he was one of the people that brought Brener in the first place, so a little understandable. But did you feel like you guys were on the same page throughout this whole process about what was possible with Brener?
Absolutely, yeah. We've been on the same page since I showed up here, so nothing different with this one.
In-league loans are not completely foreign, but rare. What about Mark's
Yeah.
stood out to you as to why you brought him into this community?
Again, he's another guy that we have been tracking even pre-Salt Lake, that kind of scored well for us in our data, and so a player that we were familiar with. Again, we ask a lot of our wingbacks, with the ball, and so we knew that Dom had qualities, even though he's a young player, qualities with the ball, can get in spots that we feel are dangerous spots. Again, he did early in the game, and unfortunately we didn't pull a play off. But he's got a great engine. He's a willing worker. He's a good soccer player, and a young player that we think can get better. And like you said, the in-league loans are rare. But again, I think another sort of efficient way to manage the cap in a period like this, to try to get an additive piece and still maintain flexibility going forward.
How difficult was it to make that decision, specifically to move Yedlin? He's been a starter. You guys were in first at that time. Like how big of a risk did that feel, just in knowing that you were moving on from a guy that had kind of gotten you to the point that you were?
No, look, DeAndre meant a lot to this team, to the locker room, to myself. There was a personal connection in which we recruited DeAndre with that ultimately complicated how he left, by promising him that he could, if there was something better for him and his family, that he could entertain that. That's kind of how we got to where we were. And then full disclosure, we all but matched what Salt Lake had to offer in the end. And DeAndre chose to go to Salt Lake. And so in the end, we did all we could to keep him, but he's got a wonderful family and people he has to support. And in the end, he made a decision to what's best for him and those people. And I can't argue with that.
Now, I know you've got, I think Carter, last time we talked to you, asked about some of the decisions with, a lot of contracts coming up this year. Matt Miazga specifically, coming back from an injury. How are things going? How do you feel like is he performing to what you kind of thought? And where does he,
well, look,
do you still see him in the
Yes,
team?
I do. Matt's a big part of this. He's our captain. He's a big part of this club. He's a big part of our success on the field, the success we've had over the last couple of years. We see Matt as a part of this club, certainly in the coming years.
Roman Solentano, he's at the U.S. men's national team camp right now, and that's a guy who's been a staple for this roster. Specifically on him, what does it mean for him to get an opportunity so close to the World Cup to go and represent himself and the club at the national team level, and to, secondly, consistently have between either him or Miles or other guys representing FCC at the national team level?
Yeah, well, that's something that the second part, really educating, Carl and ownership on, especially early on, that, sometimes, especially with our league playing through FIFA windows, while it's hard to lose players and not have them performing for you on the field, they're representing our club, our city, them as owners on the global stage, and that's really cool, and well deserved for those guys. It's a testament to Roman's work ethic. Shows up every day, works his ass off along with Paul, pushes Roman in the right way. He's continued to improve, and I think there's no bigger recognition than being called in for your national team. We're really proud of him.
We've seen a player in Dado Valenzuela come into his own this year. He's top 3 goal scorers for the club. Where do you see...
I love all these stats that you guys have that I would have no idea of.
Where do you see him fitting in with all these new additions that have come in and kind of play similar positions for him?
As a key contributor, I think he came on the field the other night and showed his quality. He set up a couple chances that gave us the ability to tie the game, and it didn't come off. I think where this league has evolved is you want to be able to look down your bench and see 7, 8, 9 starting quality options. And for so long in MLS, that was never the case. You maybe had 2, and then the other 7 you're looking at as sort of perennial reserves. And so really, pushing, and not Pat specifically, but coaches over the years to be accepting of that, having to manage a really good quality player as the 18th, 19th, 20th guy. And what do you think that's like at Chelsea right now? They might have 4 starting 11s. So I think it's a testament to where our league's grown that a guy like Dado, with his ability, has to fight for minutes, because he wouldn't have had to do that 5 years ago. And so that's a testament, I think, to how we're building things and where the league's going.
When you look at the team right now, what does give you the most excitement, the belief that you guys can win a trophy this year?
I think we have elite difference makers where it matters most. The margins of our game are about scoring goals. We go into a lot of games, and I think if it was we were playing in the NBA, we'd probably win by 12. That's not how our sport works. Goals are so critical, and I think we have elite personnel in those areas. And so certainly with Kevin, Evander, they've shown it. Brener's shown it in the past. Players that we brought in. I feel good about the group of players that we're adding, and that they're all going to fit in the right way. And then health's a big part of it. And so, we anticipate Obi coming back and being a part of the playoffs. We anticipate Miles back shortly. Those are 2 gigantic pieces that help us play like we want to play and make the other guys better. And so you put all that together, and we're going to give it our best run at it.
Speaking of Obi, because you guys didn't put him on the season ending, so did you feel at that point that you had a good enough kind of idea on the timeline for his return? Can you say anything about that timeline?
Yeah.
Because I see him out here now.
Yeah, I think he's well, we're obviously going to, Matt Bosom, our doctor, our orthopedic surgeon, is excellent at what he does, and we got second opinion specific to Obi's injury and the surgery he had. And so we knew the timeline would be right there, and then you factor in the human that's going to be attacking that rehab, and then you feel real comfortable with the timeline. Obi's been the best patient that you could imagine. I'm sure that surprises no one. And so we know that he's got the fight in him to fight like hell to be back to help us compete. And so that was kind of the decision making behind not placing him on season-ending injury.
So the club has put a lot of resources into the academy, the 2-team, building up those players. I've already seen a few graduate to the senior team, like Dado, Steph Sherrella, Steven Jimenez. Is there a possibility that, because those guys aren't getting as many minutes as maybe you would like, that they in the future may leave on loan to go play against competition that is more comparable to the MLS than what they're seeing in the rest of the MLS next?
Yeah, I think we're in the early stages of maybe having that abundance of talent at the academy level and the second team level, to where that gets super complicated. We certainly have those players' sort of development arcs in mind at all times. Steven, we were looking very closely at a loan for him in Mexico. right before Leagues Cup came around, and right before injuries came around, and then all of a sudden you find yourself on the field. I mean, that's what this job is. That's what this sport is. It's unpredictable. Timing plays a big part in where you wind up. And so, credit to Steven, for example, he got on the field and he really performed. And so he's kind of put himself back in the group that maybe he wasn't in before. If that didn't happen, maybe he's on loan in Mexico right now. And yeah, we're looking at ways for him to best continue to develop and develop for him as a player and develop for us as an asset and as a player. So yeah, we're constantly, we have a team from myself to Jeff Lorenowitz down to Larry that's constantly thinking of how we better these players, and we're going to continue to try to do a better job of that.